it while he's doing it. So, I'm Rachel Waits. I'm with the National Governors Association. I deal with, we work with all the governors. We're the Center for Best Practices side, and we are the think tank, technical assistant consulting arm of NGA versus the side that lobbies Congress on what the governors want from Congress. I do have experience in states and counties, cities and counties. I have worked, and I'll tell some of those stories today with downtown, or City of Phoenix, City of Scottsdale, Oklahoma City, on a lot of their developments on trying to create what we're all here, I think, to talk about is innovation hubs. So I'm in an interesting position. I'm sort of the transition from the first panel to this panel, and so I probably, you're going to go from down here, well, up here this morning to down here on the ground to here. So bear with me to sort of set some of the connections between still linking the notion of what's it take to be an innovative place, how do you translate that to some of the land use issues you talked about, or that Peter was talking about. So I'm glad to know that based on the previous first panel that I think there's a consensus, at least among them, and I would encourage you to think that your goal is to figure out how you create an innovative hub, innovative ecosystems, sort of thinking about that, and as Peter pointed out, that might be as big as a whole city. So that's interesting. So you're going to have to deal with some of those challenges of which I'm going to talk about. How do you make this all happen? I think we can learn from some of the icons out there. Research Triangle Park, Boston Pioneer Square, San Diego. And I would ask, how many of you thought that's what you were going to think about, those visions of what you wanted to be when you started thinking about how you might be an innovation hub? Or have you thought about downtown Phoenix, Centennial Park, or lately in Virginia, the Commonwealth Center for Advanced Manufacturing Innovation Zone? So I'm going to talk about some of those, but first set that up, sort of give you some storytelling of how it happened, largely to tie to some of the things that I heard earlier. It does take leadership. It does take collaboration. It generally takes mega partnerships, and it also takes a very strong framework and foundation of what the heck does it mean to be a place that cultivates innovation. So, a number of states, I have to tell you, the competition is getting very tough. Everybody will tell you around the world, everybody's trying to figure out how to be an innovation hub. I will tell you, half of the states have legislation about creating innovation hubs, and California has its own program of the iHubs. So we see this going on a lot. I don't think we have all the answers. I worry a little bit because a lot of the governors, a lot of the cities, the mayors, everybody tends to think it's about meds and eds. It is very much about meds and eds, and you're very fortunate. That's, by the way, medical institutions and educational institutions, a sort of shorthand for us. It's very fortunate that you have those. This is a diagram for actually University of Florida and trying to figure out, well, how do we connect some of this? The universities have some meds and eds, but maybe they need some other things, which is what we're going to talk about. Back to the notion of, you tend to think it's meds and eds. So I'll give you an example. Governor Cuomo of New York just announced that he was going to create tax-free zones around all the SUNY university system in New York for the purpose of total tax-free zone, for the purpose of attracting small businesses, venture capital, and other companies to around the universities. I think that's great, and frankly, a lot of governors start there. with that notion of what do I do with meds and eds, but I have to tell you, I don't think it's just about those buildings and meds and eds. And I think a lot of governors are starting to go, we know we don't know all the ingredients, so what are all those ingredients? We have to imagine something else. So I would say to all of you, and as I try to say to governors, you have to move beyond the bricks and mortar approach to innovation hubs. It's very important. I have a little bit of disagreement even with Peter in that he was sort of saying a city is all about these blocks. I know he didn't totally mean that, but it sort of gets that notion of if I get those facilities there, I'm in great shape. I got the beginnings of an innovation hub. You do have. But it's a much more complex vision, and you have to figure out how to get that distinctive collection of people, firms, institutions, amenities, and relationships that combine in finely tuned ways to get at these objectives that you were talking about in your first speakers. So if you tour around very quickly what you would see. So we go to Boston. We learned very quickly that, boy, those meds and eds are very important. But that's not all we learned here. It wasn't just about that. In fact, if you read Kauffman Foundation's history of what went on there, especially with MIT, it was very important to have all that star power and that research power, but it really was about the change in the philosophy of entrepreneurship. And thinking about how do you spin out companies, thinking about taking your faculty, working with the alumni, all those kinds of efforts really changed what was going on in the Boston area. Then we move on to San Diego. What did we learn in San Diego? Very important to have that critical mass of research institutions. In fact, I would say Torrey Pines in San Diego was one of the first brilliant land use planning decisions ever made. And that was to pack in a 2-mile stretch all of this intellectual power. But that's not what we've learned there. That was important, but what we've learned from the companies is that innovation is about collaboration. It's about being able to interact. And what we learned in San Diego, it was like walking distance, or if you've ever seen the San Diego map that shows the networking, they won't drive more than 15 minutes is sort of what they say to interact. Well, we move on to now in downtown Phoenix, and then I'm going to tell you about Centennial Park. Everybody thinks that Research Triangle Park is the model. Actually, Research Triangle Park is scared to death of Centennial Park in North Carolina. Why? Because Centennial Park is the new standard for mixed-use innovation hub. It's about access, as they like to say, it's about proximity as in 5 minutes. It's about a combination of lots of spaces for interaction immediately. So we're learning a lot of stuff as we go along about how important land use is, how important we have to think about imagining what an innovation hub is. So I think what is key is you have to start thinking about this as an ecosystem or through a habitat lens. And I think, secondly, you've got to think about a multidisciplinary leadership team. So I'm going to talk about both of those, and then I'm going to tell you some stories about how it all comes together. What I hope the message you get out of this is the next one is how you reimagine spaces around your universities and medical institutions so that you get all of these other things embedded in there. It's not just about the institutions or the boxes. So what's a multidisciplinary team? I worry often that you tend to think about real estate developers, land use planners. They're very important, so I'm going to add them to this list. But I really believe that if you're going to do a vision and you're going to think about implementing what you want to go forward with, you got to understand that an innovation hub, as far as I'm starting to figure out, is the combination of you got to understand your industry cluster development strategy. You got to have somebody who understands entrepreneurship strategy. You got to have somebody who understands arts, culture, and design strategy. You got to have somebody on the team that understands urban walkability and environmental sustainability. And you got to have somebody on the team who understands community revitalization strategy. That's a big team. We don't normally think about that. And I'm going to show you how important it is that that team consists of that kind of cross perspective and what you go forward. I'm going to point out community revitalization in particular because that's about how do you pay for rehab and things like that. But it's also about how do you make sure the residents benefit from what's going on with this development. This is brought home to me last night when I'm driving from San Jose Airport at 12 at midnight, and I'm lost. I make a wrong turn, so I stop at a gas station to get directions. The gas station's closed, and I start up again, and I pick out my cell phone to call the hotel to get directions, and I'm sort of driving very slowly. Cell phone, got the hotel, started to tell me where to go, and then I see lights behind me. Police officer, and I go, oh, God, the police officer's stopping me. Maybe he'll give me directions. The hotel goes, well, good luck. So he pulls me over. He walks up, and he goes, so, do you know why I pulled you over? And I went, I have no idea. He goes, have you been drinking? And I went, no, I just got off a plane. And he goes, well, you know why I pulled you over? You didn't have your lights on. And I went, oh, well, I just stopped at a gas station for directions, and they were closed, and I was pulling out, so I was talking on the phone. Talking on the phone to get directions. He goes, lady, you're just digging yourself in deeper. And I went, oh, my God. I figured out, I come from D.C., I ride the metro. So I'm like going, okay. So I go, okay. He goes, I sort of go, whatever. And he goes, so what are you doing here? And I said, well, I explained where I was coming. And he goes, oh, really? He goes, well, let me tell you something. Let me just double check, call you in, and make sure that you're not wanted in Texas. So while I'm doing that, tell me what you think we should do with Fort Ord. And I went, he's not going to like what I'm going to have to say because I'm going to sit here and explain what an innovation hub is. So I said, why don't you tell me what I should tell them? And he says, oh, I have a lot of opinions. I had a 15-minute conversation, but the number one takeaway was, I think it ought to benefit my community. It should benefit, by the way, he's in Seaside. Sea City, right? Seaside? Anyway, whatever. And he explained to me that there was actually no coast, anyway, in that city. So it was quite the exercise. So by the way, so my message to you is make sure the residents benefit. I heard it, and it did not get me a ticket, so I hope I didn't get him in trouble. So, all right. So if you put this team together, let me help you figure out, and I'm watching my watch very carefully because I know we're way over. So you put this team together, and you got to come up with a vision. You have a vision. I agree with Peter. I liked all your design principles. It is about execution. And I also think you still need to overlay the whole notion about what's it take to be an innovation hub. So let's sort of talk about what the heck does it take? What are the ingredients of an innovation hub? Well, let me just tell you what my research shows, and then we'll get into some policy frameworks and then some case studies. So don't take it from me. Let's go back to Rosebeth Moss Cantor from Harvard Business School. Any governor that asks me what's an innovation hub or what's an innovation ecosystem, I point this out. I go, it's real easy. Guess what? What do you need? You need institutions that attract and support the people with talent and foresight to create new ideas. You need industry networks. I'll let you read them because it's about interaction, collaboration, partnerships. You need facilitation of entrepreneurship to commercialize those concepts. And then you need the cultural and social amenities that constitute quality of life. Great. Individual by themselves, kind of siloed individual things. So let me tell you another framework that you might think about that complements this one. and gets us a little bit to the land use. So when I started working with Phoenix and Scottsdale and Oklahoma City, and the whole issue of innovation, by the way, I forgot to say, we've all been studying innovation for a long time. My connection to you was a real aha moment for me today when the first panel was speaking. When I first started talking to governors and elected officials and business leaders, frankly, about what's innovation, I used to carry around two props. One was a Starbucks cup, and the other was the prepackaged salad mix from Salinas, California. And they loved it. People connected immediately when I would say, you know what innovation is? It's about taking existing ingredients, combining them in different ways, and getting value and new ideas out of it. What do you think a prepackaged salad mix is? Taking those existing ingredients, combine them in new ways, actually added some technology for the preservation or preservative, and I pay a big chunk of money for that salad mix in my supermarket. My favorite story was in Oklahoma City, a big forum like this, talking about this very same issue, and when I held up that salad mix at a break, one gentleman came up to me and went, I had no idea. I thought my wife did that every night. So I'm sorry to, anyway. So how do you commute? So I've been studying innovation for a long time. So the other best source of innovation is read through Harvard Business Review. There isn't a CEO out there that's not trying to figure out how to make their company more innovative. So what do we hear that everybody's in the business school telling them about what they need? Number one, you need experts. You need smart people with ideas. But you need interaction because, as I just said, you have to interact with people to get those ideas, to get new ideas. It's not a siloed exercise. It's collaborative. You need diversity because the other thing we've learned is that if you keep talking to people just like yourself, same age, same discipline, you're not going to get any new ideas. And the third thing is you need to turn those ideas into something that matters, of value, that can get to the marketplace. So that's kind of the notion. It's that interaction. So what does that mean for us? Well, I come from a policy framework, and I appreciate very much the first panel who said, you got to have a comprehensive policy framework to get this moving. So first of all, let me go back. So I am going to talk about the policy framework, but so let me tell you what I think some of these circles mean for land use. I have no idea, but I'm starting to speculate about this. In fact, we have a project for governors on what are the guidelines for innovation hubs. So what does expertise tell us about land use? It tells us about clustering. Good idea to cluster that expertise together. But it also, we know that you need access to that expertise. So if you got that expertise locked up, my favorite story is President Crow of ASU. He moved the engineering school to the main street of downtown Tempe because the citizens and the entrepreneurs needed to have access to that expertise. Diversity, mixed use, mixed disciplines, that kind of issue starts to get in here. Interaction, all the things that Peter showed us. You got to have spaces. You got to have mixed use. And then, of course, the application, you've got to think about the entrepreneurship and the incubators and things like that. But anyway, let's get to the policy framework. I'm not going to go into, I'm just going to flash up very quickly examples that you see happening around the country. But what I've translated both Rosebeth Moss Cantor's notion as well as that diagram from the Harvard Business Review into what I would say a policy framework looks like, which you're all working on them, according to your first panel. A great presentation of all that stuff. You're building expertise. You have some of it, but you got to build it. You got to improve it. You got to access some others from elsewhere. You got to facilitate interaction. You've got to link diverse knowledge fields and industry sectors together. Most of the places I see now, they're putting multidisciplinary disciplines together, researchers together to make them talk to each other. And then you've got to push the application. So very quickly, focus on your excellence. Focus on what you got in terms of what your research is. But I want to point on the third one. A lot of effort is going into recruiting star talent. Foundations can help with this, your state can help with this, but I have to tell you, in your own backyard, Enrico Moretti at University of California, Berkeley, has done some research showing that these incentives for star power is starting to pay off. So it is worth, and it's important, as your president said earlier, you hire the right kind of folks. You don't hire the ones that want to sit in their lab by themselves. You want to hire the folks who really want to work in the community and apply their research. You build your workers and your skills. The most important thing on this one is new talent. More and more new degrees. More and more we're hearing from industry, what you have in your universities does not fit what I need. So places like ASU, places like Clemson University are creating totally different types of degrees, new kinds of degrees, often putting disciplines together so that you have the expertise that industry needs. I can tell you, I used to work at ASU. I still get the emails. I get once a month an email from ASU saying, President Crow has created a new degree that combines X, Y, and Z. So that's a very important attraction to industry. Facilitating interaction. Obviously, the districts. Proximity matters for interaction. Mega partnerships, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. I'm probably not going to have time to talk about these new institutes of intermediaries, but when you get ready for implementation, talk to me about this and go see QB3. Regis Kelly, it's one of the California, it's the Quantitative Biosciences Institute. He's brilliant at being this intermediary that connects everybody to everybody. He's a star, and if I could write his job description, I would. Networks, we know this from absolutely critical. Shared facilities are absolutely part of the interaction. Small wonders. We tend to think of these big things, but it's these small wonders that really matter about how you interact, how you have a cup of coffee. There's a rule in innovation now that you do not have collaborative environment if your coffee gets cold. If you can't get to that other person you wanted to talk to in 15 minutes or before your coffee gets cold, then you do not have interaction or a facility that enables interaction. Okay, putting diverse knowledge fields and cultures together. My favorite example is Michael Crow at ASU took all the research money that the state was giving him, took it away from the silos and made everybody in different disciplines be in one research facility together so that they had to talk to each other. All right, push commercialization. You heard a lot about that today, and my red dots coming up here. All right, so let me give you at least one story very quickly. So downtown Phoenix. The other connection I have to you is I'm from Arizona, actually, and former governor of Arizona, Janet Napolitano, who you will recognize as your new University of California chancellor, which I thought I'd point that out because somebody made a comment earlier about one of the universities of California not collaborating in the way they should. Let me tell you, I still call her Governor Napolitano. She gets it big time, and she had a role in this. So, reinventing, I don't know how I'm going to tell this fast, but I will. So, reimagining what you have. How many people thought downtowns would be an innovation hub? Well, Phoenix is worried about how it was going to survive. I had the good fortune to be working with them. I was at a public policy think tank at ASU at the time, and I had interactions with the mayor, city council. At one point, I told them how important universities were. I believe it wholeheartedly. And the mayor of Phoenix says to me, well, Mary Jo, since everything you tell me, it's a knowledge economy, innovation economy, I think I should just spend all my dollars about attracting MIT to Phoenix. I said, that's one way to do it, and frankly, I kind of wanted to say that's not bad. Competition's good. However, I knew I was on TV, and President Kaur at the time probably was not going to be thrilled if I said that. So I actually said, well, you know, and I believe this. I wasn't really worried about President Kaur. I said, actually, I'd be just like any company. You play to your strengths. You go with the strengths you've got. You got a Research One university at ASU. And Mayor Remza says, but that's in Tempe. And I said, oh, grow up, it's 5 miles away. You can connect to that university. Well, I'm not going to claim credit for all this, but one thing led to another. They started having conversations with ASU in Tempe, and guess what? We're going to get an ASU downtown campus. Phoenix footed the bill for ASU downtown campus. And meanwhile, Governor Napolitano has a biosciences initiative statewide, decided to recruit Dr. Jeffrey Trent, star scientist, to come back and run TGen Institute in Arizona. State put $90 million on the table. The city of Phoenix, while everybody else was saying, city of Phoenix, build a new Cardinal Stadium downtown along with a basketball and baseball stadium. Mayor Remza says, no, thank you, very quietly. I'm going to go for the TGen facility and put space and $50 million on the table for the TGen facility. So all of a sudden, you got 2 anchors downtown for an innovation hub. So they do a vision, though, and you can see they didn't have the anchors you have, so they had to go get those anchors, but they knew that wasn't enough. They couldn't just plop them down in the middle of downtown. So they worried about the rest of the vision, which is a lot about arts and culture, great neighborhoods, and back to the partnership. So the biomedical campus, guess what? President Crow, U of A, ASU, U of A president, the business community said we will not do another med school, and we have complementary strengths at both of the universities, and we're going to focus here at ASU, our downtown Phoenix, and you will collaborate. And the presidents go arm in arm every time they talk to the community about collaboration. You see them behind the scenes? It's not so collaborative, but it worked out really well. So there's ways to do that. Anyway, here's what the new, and if you go see this last result, so back to Peter's comments, I don't have the numbers, I forgot them, frankly, but I can tell you that Phoenix is 10 years, 2004, started the vision, started all this, bonding from the city of Phoenix, money from the state, blah, 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 private sector, got hotels, you name it. But let me tell you, right now, revenues, sales tax revenue, Phoenix was in one of the worst recessions, second to Nevada. Sales tax revenues went up in downtown Phoenix, and studies show that it's the only other place is the only place that was creating jobs during the recession. More importantly, they did a lot of live-work redesigning, and there is all of a sudden a regeneration of young people, young entrepreneurs living downtown, creating their own incubators. You walk around going, where did these come from? And the city of Phoenix doesn't even know. They go, I don't know. They just sort of showed up. They wanted to be here. But they had transit. They had a lot of things to put together. And I have another case study, but I'm totally out of time. But can I just say one quick thing? Do I have? Okay, so here's another one you should think about that's about a mega partnership that I think is part of what you need to think when you think of your clusters. So the Advanced Manufacturing Innovation Zone, this is the model that the Obama administration has identified for what they would like this national network, they call it the NNMI, the National Network of Manufacturing Innovation Centers or hubs. They want to fund 15 of them. They've only funded 2 of them. There are going to be more of them. But let me tell you, this is a partnership of 8 firms, 8 big companies, Rolls-Royce, Siemens, you name it, and they said to Virginia, you want me, these are multinational corporations that are saying, you want me, you can give me those tax breaks, but you know what I really want? I want tailored research, and I want a tailored talent pipeline, and I want a supplier network. So they put together this partnership. The companies decide the research agenda for all of the universities at the table. They decide the curriculum and the pipeline. They design the parameters for the workforce. You can see the dollars put on the table and what's happening in terms of the outcomes. And then here's the final thing. So the notion being that when you think about what your clusters are, think about what they want in terms of the research agenda, what's the partnership, and by the way, the companies put the dollars on the table for the research agenda and the training along with the state and the universities. So it's the kind of partnership. I have many more examples of those kind of industry mega public-private partnerships, and if you want to come to my table at lunch, I'll be happy to share more stories. Thank you.